I think there is an added focus on brand now because marketing is responsible for so much more of the buyer's journey now than sales is. But in that same regard, we have to redefine brand because a lot of CEOs and CFOs are like, okay, we're going to redesign the website and we're going to create a new logo and new color palette and look and feel and all that type of stuff. And that is a component of brand, but it's the most minimal component, quite honestly. Brand is really how you show up in the market and how prospects and customers learn to trust you. They understand who you are, what you stand for, the problems that you solve for them. All of that is still at the brand level. That's not going down to the demand gen level. That's still at brand. That's how you show up in the marketplace. So that is really, really more important because marketers are owning more of the buyer's journey, and it's incumbent upon marketing to establish relationships with buying committees at your prospects and establish trust so that your company is on the short list of vendors that they're considering so that when they pick up the phone to talk to your salespeople, you're already on that short list. Sales didn't do that. Marketing did that. That's where I think brand is playing a much bigger role.
Feels like with the economic pressures, boards were like, okay, we need pipeline and we need to win more business, of course. And that pressured marketers, which I see a lot of discourse about marketing being harder than ever and the expectations being stronger than ever. And it's this over-index on demand gen. And I'm curious because from your perspective, we actually ran an event for Common Room recently, and we had Sangram on the webinar. And now Sangram, of course, talks about it through humanizing go-to-market, but also unifying go-to-market across what you just mentioned, across more of the buyer's journey and not just your specific slice of the pie. Yeah. So I'm curious if you would agree with that. Is there an over-indexing on demand gen that is now biting us in the butt? And was that due to the very big promises from vendors around ABM and the evolution of like maybe more contact-based type programs? What's your take on that sentiment?
Yeah, as with everything, the pendulum swings, right? Back in the olden days, before we had sophisticated marketing automation tools and technology and those sorts of things, everybody understood and marketers understood and sales understood that you needed to sell to a buying committee inside of an account. They've always known who's the economic buyer. I mean, there were books written on that 30 plus years ago. But then enter marketing automation. And now suddenly we're like, oh, from a marketing perspective, we can talk to everybody. And then layer on top of that content marketing. It was like, okay, we're just going to create all this content and we have all these people in our database and we're just going to send it out. We're going to get them to engage. And then when they engage and fill out a form, we're going to send it over to sales as leads. Then enter ABM. That was like, okay, that's all well and good, but you really need to focus on, you sell to accounts, not just individuals who come to your webinar, right? So we over-indexed on the account level and forgot about the fact that there's a buying committee that you need to be talking to and engaging and once again, establishing that trust with and those sorts of things. And so we over-engaged at the account level. And now we're swinging back to the middle where it's like account level first. So you have to understand your ICP. You have to understand who you want to sell to, not just your total addressable market, but who you want to sell to. And then layer on top of that, the buying committees so that you can track them through their entire buyer's journey with you and make sure you're delivering relevant content. So this is the new, some people are calling it buying group marketing. I think it's just the evolution of demand gen because I don't want to put another 3-letter acronym out there. Marketing to buying groups is what every demand gen team out there should be doing. And it's the long game. It's not, this is where it's brand to demand is now that a continuum people are talking about. And do you have two separate teams that are responsible for brand or demand, or is your demand team responsible for the whole customer lifecycle, the whole buying journey? And so now you have to pick up signals earlier. You have to understand the whole buying journey, how long it actually takes. And then where's that handoff to sales? And can you actually shorten or can you accelerate pipeline and shorten that deal cycle, that velocity? I think what we're going to see when we look back in 5 years and look at the trends, velocity is going to go up. It's going to get shorter because so much more of the buying journey happens before they ever talk to sales. So by the time they talk to sales, they're like, great, it's you and 2 other vendors. I already know the basics. Talk to me on why I need to buy from you, right?
That brings in the themes of how our positioning can be more focused on brand, demand, and expand. We can touch all 3 of those areas with an ecosystem approach. It'll be a bit different in who we bring in. Maybe it's your customers, maybe it's influencers, maybe it's partners, depending on where you're trying to target. Talk to me more about like for a buying group to be influenced and to trust a brand ahead of time, the 18 months or the 12 months before they get into any kind of like buying cycle.
Right.
That's obviously brand, but building a brand is definitely difficult because it's harder to track, but also there's a lot more noise. I'm led to believe that the ecosystem is the way to go. But from a brand building perspective, what's your take on that? And maybe do you have any past experiences or even things that you're doing right now where you're like, yeah, this is how we're thinking about building brands? And I'm curious whether or not it does include partners or the ecosystem approach.
Part of how you show up in the market is also the company you keep, right? So that's where partner programs have always been powerful. And that's why everybody always clamors to be partners with the biggest brands in the industry, because you want to be seen as keeping the right company. Would you rather be partners with Sugar CRM or Salesforce? Now, it all depends on your ICP, but probably Salesforce. And so that does do something for your overall brand. And that's why customer case studies and logos that you work with are always so important, because it's like either that company's just like us, or wow, these like Fortune 500 companies trust them. That's really impressive. Or, hey, I'm a small venture-backed startup and look at all these other venture-backed startups. So they get our business. So it's all of that plays into brand. But how do you get all that information in people's hands? It's through demand programs. So this is where I'm like, brand is, okay, creating all those assets. Demand is how you get them out into the marketplace and at various stages in the buyer's journey. Because if you put a customer case study in front of somebody who doesn't even know they have a problem yet, it's going to fall on deaf ears. So up there, you need to be delivering certain messaging and helping people realize, hey, you've got a problem that you could actually solve for and be doing it better. And so once again, is that your brand team that needs to be getting out there, or is it your demand team, or should it be one and the same? I would argue it's largely one and the same.
Very cool.
And that's where partnerships also come in.
So that's actually one of our biggest challenges was when we talk about, okay, you can get additional distribution from people that are trusted and they have great insights, so the content is going to be awesome. We were teetering on, it can help with demand gen, but it's basically brand building. And so we would get asked, how do I, one, track the effectiveness of this? And we had organic mentions and overall lift in traffic and all that kind of stuff, which is loose. But then they would say, okay, I'm held accountable for developing pipeline and generating leads. And again, this was a VP of marketing. And they say, how is this going to do that? How do partners layer into demand? Because brand, we got that by association. You see the logos, great. But demand wise, I feel like that's where it falls apart for marketing teams that are not partner minded. But what's your take on how demand can be amplified with partners?
Yeah. And this is where it boggles my mind that people can't see it, because to me, it's just so straightforward. Because I've been doing partner marketing for 2 decades. So as you said earlier, you're biased about things. So am I. But there's an interesting dynamic when it comes to partner marketing. So take, for instance, Inverta. We're a 40-person consulting firm. So our database is not going to be huge. We're not going to have a ton of reach. We're not going to drive a ton of signups for webinar, let's just say. However, we are a trusted voice in the industry. We know our shit when it comes to ABM. And so if there's a brand that's trying to talk ABM to their audience, bringing us on brings that third-party credibility to the conversation, not just, oh, fine, yeah, you're a tech vendor that's trying to sell an ABM solution, so of course you're going to talk about ABM. But on the flip side, for a company like us, we don't have a huge database. So being able to partner with some of those bigger brands, we're happy to bring the IP and the industry knowledge to the table and develop the content to then have access to that partner's database. So it's a win-win on both sides. It's just a matter of how you look at it. But a lot of demand folks are so myopic about it. And they're like, yeah, but how many registrations are you going to bring to the table? That's not the value that we bring. We bring the content, the industry expertise, and those sorts of things. You bring the database. So it's an interesting dance when it comes to hitting the demand side, because so many people are still so focused on that versus, hey, if we bring one of the foremost experts on ABM to the table, that makes us look good. But they don't see it that way. They're just like, how many registrations are you going to bring?
It sounds like the framing for tech vendors wanting to build more demand, they should consider partnering a conversion lift, not a volume lift. If you're
Right.
bringing in expertise, expect it to increase the conversion because the value is going to be a lot higher. The bias is probably going to be a lot lower. And the practical stories and applications are going to be a lot more apparent as well. And so bringing in third-party expertise, the conversion of that audience, whether it's from them or your own, that's what's going to matter most. I would imagine the pressures from boards or other marketing teams of we need more pipeline and just close more revenue makes them think in volume metrics, which now that I think about it, that's what the sales industry does as well. Oh, cold calls are not working as much. Just cold call more. And
Right.
so with that, now you're focusing on conversion, not on volume. So you're wasting less time and you are essentially being more efficient and your conversion rates go up. So that's fantastic. But the frame of reference is less of this, I just need more. And instead, I just need to convert better because I already have enough probably. I just need to nurture them and convert them.
This is why brand to demand starts to get muddy because it's such a longer sales cycle. And demand was always seen as that last touch attribution, the last program that got a name that you handed over to the SDR team and they got a meeting. But now demand is that whole buying cycle. And so really it should be, hey, how many accounts did we move from, if we've got a 5-stage buying journey, how many accounts did we move from stage 1 to stage 2, from stage 2 to stage 3, stage 3 to stage 4, right? Over the course of a quarter. That's how you should be looking at demand. And this plays into the partner side of things because there might be more higher up in the buyer's journey stuff that's going to be a little bit more partner friendly. And then there might be a dead spot in the middle of the buyer's journey where partners aren't really going to play a role, but then they may play a big role when it comes down to that credibility further down the buyer's journey.
You mentioned that partners may not fit as well in the middle of the buying stages. Is that by experience? The reason I ask is obviously there's co-sell, which if you bring an agency partner in and help with selling, then it can add that layer of credibility and push things over the line. But then also from brand awareness, it's trusted operators validating problem statements and showing the path to the promised land. In the middle, outside of joint customer success stories, do you feel that partners are not as impactful in the middle stage?
Partnerships can help expose your brand to people that you wouldn't have normally gotten to, right? So for the instance of the webinar, you get access to your partner's database, they get access to your database. It just gets your brand in front of them. And if it's with a trusted partner that maybe they're already a customer of, or they're also evaluating, that type of stuff is immeasurable. That's hard to measure, but it does make an impact. So how do you know it makes an impact? There's a little bit of your spidey senses on it. I think there's some of it is when you do an event with a customer or with a partner, or you do some sort of a campaign with a partner, UTM codes work wonders. Can you see that traffic increased because of that UTM code? You may not know the names of the companies. You may not know the individuals because there was no form to fill. But if you have the right technologies, you can see at least who the company is. But can you add attribution to that? It's really hard to do. So, but at least you can see, we had a spike here that did provide that awareness level that we were looking for.
I'm even thinking through the webinar that we did with Common Room. The goal was distribution with partners, and then obviously the content's going to be great because it'll be a great conversation. And what we found was because we promoted on social, which is not like an owned database, it didn't convert as much. And these were also individuals, so they didn't necessarily promote through their companies. And that is also missing out on a database. So from a brand building perspective, focusing on volume, there was a miss there because of not just where it was being distributed, but within what context the person was being engaged, like company versus as an individual. Yeah. And then that's making me think if the program was targeted at all of the clients' middle of funnel database contacts, then they should have invited all of them to it and they should be sending it to all of them because it's like that deeper education on the problem, not as much brand awareness, but there's a couple misses in that program that we ran where from even just a partner structure standpoint, this has given me a lot of ideas of if we want conversion, we need to be very specific in who we're targeting for the content, but also who we're inviting into the content. And if it's for brand awareness, then, okay, we better be dang sure that there's a large database that we can tap into that's ideally owned so that there's a conversion of taking the next step versus social being amorphous and hard to track and also hard to convert on.
The databases are hard though, and this has always been a trick when it comes to partner marketing, because partner marketing always gets the leftovers, right? Because people are very protective of their database. So when partner comes to the table and says, hey, we've got a program we want to run, they get the leftovers. They get the, oh yeah, you can take our tier 3 contacts that we won't email that week. So sure, those can be used for partner marketing. So now you start to see, in theory, it sounds good, but in execution, it doesn't actually accomplish what you want it to.
Okay, really good point. Because now I'm thinking through, as we're targeting non-partnering people, but we're coming in with this novel approach of, hey, demand team or hey, marketing team, you're going to get more for less. I wonder if that could be a win for partner teams. We've thought about that as get friendly with the partner person and then be like, by the way, we sell to the marketing team, so you don't need budget. They're going to be agreeing to all this. We just need to frame it in the way of demand team, you care about this, and you're going to be doing that. So let's just get third parties into it. So you have a baseline of 1, it's now going to be 2 or 3x what you would have typically expected. Now, how would you pitch to a marketing person to think about ecosystem or partners more? There's like wins that we've found through it's more distribution, or that's actually one of the main ways they go, their ears perk up. They go, oh, more distribution, that's great, because their distribution is so limited, especially these days. But how would you convince a demand marketing person to think more about partners, maybe without thinking about distribution specifically?
Oh God, that's a great question. I mean, maybe not necessarily distribution, but access, right? And this is even trickier from a partner perspective, but if you can get to a partner's customer base, that is gold for a partner. So if you can do some sort of a swap, that obviously will open up those doors a little bit more, but it's really coming with some sort of a value you can provide to their customers. Because now they're already a customer of the one company who they like and trust. So it's like getting a soft introduction. They're more likely to listen to you as a potential partner, that either if you're a technology that plugs into their technology, or you're a services firm that can help them 2x their ROI on their tech investment, those sorts of things. Can you get access to their customer base? Because that, once again, is going to short circuit your buying cycle. But those are hard to come by. Those are relationships that have to be built. Talk about trust between the partners has to come first, and then before they'll let you actually have access. But as soon as you have a very demonstrable value you provide, that's typically where I try to go with partnerships, is getting to their customer base. Here, I'll do this. I'll build a specific piece of content for you. I'll do a video series for you if you'll just distribute it to your customers. And then it's incumbent upon you now to turn that access into demand or into opportunities.
The idea of let me build this specific thing only for your customer base. That's so compelling, especially if it's obviously got all the value needed, but just the activity in and of itself valuable.